Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides. Okay, welcome everybody. It is so great to be here with you. We are now going to be covering the weekly astrological weather of May 23rd to the 29th. And we have a very special astrologer weather woman with us today. And that is intuitive astrologer Bronwyn Simons. Bronwyn has been an inner circle guide with us. She's been on the podcast several times. She is definitely, she was on the podcast for the first time because we put a little survey out on social media and asked for people to vote for an astrologer that they would like to see on our podcast. And Bronwyn was overwhelmingly voted for. And so we got to have her on the podcast. We found out she's been an inner circle member for years. And then she ended up being an inner circle guide, an astrologer in the inner circle, which was such a pleasure to do. So Bronwyn, it's great to have you back. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be back. I love that origin story. I love my community, and I love that I've been able to pull my community into this bigger Astrology Hub community. It's great to see you, Amanda.
You too. All right. So for anybody that wants a little more background on Bronwyn, there are two episodes I would point you to. Episode 67, which was working with the moon and its phases for manifesting your desires. This was a really amazing episode. I highly recommend it. And then also episode 177, which was basically a precursor to 2022, correct? I mean, a precursor to 2020.
Yeah, 2020 now. Yeah.
Yes. And it was about working with the moon and going from grounded to airborne. So that was another amazing episode you all can check out. Okay. So Bronwyn, last week we had Ari Wolf on, and he said the theme of last week was around integrating the eclipse energy. So we talked a lot about how to do that. What would you say that the theme for this week ahead is for us?
Yeah, I think we are continuing that integration and distilling down to what is essential, because we're at that watershed moment of changing into a new energetic cycle. So continuing and completing that integration that Ari talked about last week, and really focusing on psychological stability as we go into this next cycle.
Okay, so you say a watershed moment.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? I mean, I've heard that phrase before. I feel like I should know what it means, but what do you mean by it?
What I mean by it is when two currents come together, and we're at that time of completion when the current that we've been flowing with for the last 2 years, 2.5 years even, and then for the last 6 months, and just for this last lunar month, we are coming to the end of those energetic cycles. And we're just so many planets at the 29th degree this week. It just has that feeling of the one current entering into the greater current. So we have that moment, that magical moment when things are still kind of shifting from the eclipses, but we're entering into that larger sea of the next energetic cycle. So these are times to really pay attention, to hold on to what's essential. It's like a balsamic moment in so many ways.
Okay. When you say we have a lot of planets at 29 degrees, can you unpack that a little bit? Who cares? What does that mean?
Yeah. So we know the planets move from 0 to 29 of each sign. Each sign takes up 30 degrees. So that's their developmental journey from 0 degrees to 29. And when they get to that last degree, the 29th degree, it's called the Anaretic degree, and it holds the essence. It's like a seed moment. The 0 degrees is the seed, and the 29 degrees is a seed. It packs all of the energy of that sign into that 1 degree. It's like the maturing seed. So again, that idea of distilling the essence. And we find often, like in natal charts, when people have a lot of 29 degree placements, there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of energy of being present at the end of things and carrying the seed on into the next cycle. There's this just a really beautiful wisdom of endings with the 29th degree, but it's more than that because it's about carrying the seed over. So it's full of potential, but also full of the wisdom of endings. Really potent.
So, Bronwyn, this is a little bit of a sidebar question
Mhm.
before we go into the why you're saying this and starting to go into the astrology of it.
Gemini times, it's all about the sidebars.
Yeah, I got a sidebar on this because people ask this all the time when they're born on the cusp
Yeah.
of something. So, like for me, I was born on the very last day of Capricorn, so I'm 29
Yeah.
degrees, and
Yes.
and so a lot of people I hear go, well, then I'm kind of Aquarius, or I'm, because I'm on the cusp. But what I've heard, and I don't know if you agree with this, is that that just means you're even more that
Yes.
sign. Like you're the if you're at 29 degrees of any sign, you're like the epitome of that sign.
The
Yes.
0 degree and the 29 degree hold the greatest intensity of that
Yeah.
sign with different qualities. But the cusp is like a matter of seconds. There is such a thing as a cusp, but it's just, you have to be born during a certain 10 seconds of the month to really be on that.
Ah,
Otherwise, you're right. It's the intensity. And then everybody born the next day is into that 0 degrees, the intensity of the next sign.
mm,
So yeah, it's not a blending of energies, but it is in a way because there's the job of the Anaretic degree is this holding of the essence, distilling down. This is where that word balsamic comes in, right? Like we think of the vinegar, and what does that have to do with the phase of a planet or the moon? But it's important because what happens with that distillation process is it gets more and more intensely what it is, right? The flavor becomes richer and deeper. The color becomes richer and deeper. It gets kind of thick. That's it. That's the Anaretic degree, is like the thick, distilled, pungent, potent essence of that energy. And the job of that Anaretic degree period of time or person, if you have that natally, is to be the one who carries that essence over into what is new. So it's a potent placement to have in your chart. It's often the people who carry a lot of energy and open us up into new times and new ways and are comfortable with endings.
mm, mm. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're having this kind of energy this week of
Yeah. With the
distilling the
moon.
essence. Yeah,
Yeah.
distilling the essence, taking what's actually important so that we can carry that forward into the next phase.
Yes.
And so tell us, let's start to talk about the astrology a little bit. Why are you saying this?
So we have both Mars and Venus changing signs moving into their signs of rulership this week. So those are our personal planets, right? Mars being our drive, Venus being our values and our desire and our balance. Mars likes to separate things, Venus likes to bring things together. These are the voices that are really close to us. So when we see that kind of activity with the personal planets, we know we're really going to be feeling things in our immediate life, in our relationships, it's not the astrology of out there this week, although there is some of that too. It's in here, rich inner conversations and rich conversations around us. So both Venus and Mars are at their Anaretic degree, 29th degree, this week, and then moving to 0 degrees of their rulership signs. So they're both ending these long journeys through places where they aren't as comfortable and powerful, and stepping finally through that door into the places where they feel at home and in power. So there is that feeling of, can I share just a small story from this morning? Because I think it's the
Yes.
daily symbolism. So as I'm preparing for this podcast, my daughter, who's been visiting for a few weeks, is preparing to head home to Los Angeles. And she's negotiating about her luggage. She has to take this small plane from where we are on the island to be able to catch her plane to LA. And there's a lot of back and forth just within our family and with the airline to think about, is her luggage, the things that she's accumulated since she's been with us, is it all going to fit, or is she going to be able to get it onto this little plane to go home to her home space? And I thought, that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. It's a little microcosm of the psychological work that we're going to be doing this week, which is gathering together all of the things that we've learned over eclipse season, over the last 6 months since the last eclipse season, and over the last 2 years. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we're gathering all this stuff, packing up what we really need, and then we have to get the logistics together. How am I going to squeeze this onto the little plane to take me into that next space. So Venus is doing this with our values. Mars is doing this with our action. And the moon is doing this as she does every month, moving through her balsamic phase and saying, hey, what has your emotional journey been this month? And what's the essence of it? And do you want to bring forward and what do you want to leave behind? So there's lots of that question. What am I bringing forward? What do I want to leave behind from a month, 6 months, and 2 years?
Those are
And
powerful questions.
Mercury too is at an Anaretic degree, but he's moving backwards. So that's a kind of funny one. He has just gone back into Taurus and as just before the week begins, sitting at that Anaretic degree. So all three of our personal planets sitting at 29. It's big.
Okay, so we're looking at our values, our actions, our emotions. We're distilling those down to the most essential things that
Yeah.
we've picked up over the last like 2-3 week period. The 6-month cycle that we've been in between these two eclipses, and then also the last 2 years. And we're asking these questions: what do I bring forward? And what do I leave behind? And how do I squeeze these things into a format that will enable me to bring them to the next place that I'm going? So how do I fit it all in? These new aspects of me, how do I fit it all in and bring it where I'm going next? I love that story that you told of your daughter. It's so perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Yeah. So let's pick up from there.
Yeah, and if you want to do some self-work with it, to just sit and journal on the question, what is essential? And it'll bring up all kinds of things. It can be, what is the essential lesson? What is essential to me around my values, Venus? What is essential for me to take action on right now, Mars? What are my essential beliefs coming out of, this retrograde? So there's lots of work you can do that I actually do with that question. I actually recommend that you do that every balsamic moon. Just do a little bit of moon journaling. What is essential? And it really helps you to clear the slate for the next cycle. And I'm really emphasizing that new cycle piece because this is the last week of our current Mars-Jupiter cycle. We had a Mars-Jupiter cycle back in March of 2020, which of course we all remember as being a really important moment. And they're meeting up again at the end of this week to initiate a new 2-year cycle. So, sometimes I just look at the transits and there's such an elegance and beauty to the way the planets seem to be preparing us for what's next. And this beautiful movement of the personal planets into their homes, asking us to take stock, and Mercury in his magical backwards moment, kind of confusing us, but also bringing us magic, is such a perfect climate for doing this psychological integration work that's going to set us up for this next really exciting cycle of expansion in our lives, which is what Mars-Jupiter cycle is all about. So it never ceases to amaze me, the benevolence and elegance of the way the cosmos prepares us.
So when you say that we're at the last week of this Mars-Jupiter cycle, what are the themes that we've been working, like what has that Mars-Jupiter cycle brought up, and what will the new phase be about?
Yeah. So if we remember our keywords, we know that Mars is action and Jupiter is expansion. So their mutual dance together. When they begin a new cycle, it initiates for us a new cycle of how do we want to expand? How are we going to take action on the ways that we want to grow our lives, our dreams, our spirituality, our life path? And their conjunction sets the tone for that whole cycle. What is our growth and expansion going to look like? What is the quality of the action we're going to be able to take around our expansion going to look like? So the last time they met up was in Capricorn. It was actually at that potent degree of 22 Capricorn, which some of you might remember was where Saturn Pluto met up, initiating this really challenging cycle that we've been working with for the last couple of years, the pandemic and other world events that we've seen, and our own internal limitations that we've been coming up against. So that was a really interesting one to have them meet up in Capricorn, that sign of hard work and limitation. And we have all experienced that the ways that we have grown and expanded, we've really had a Saturnian flavor to that. And by that, I mean we have had to be really mature. We have had to work hard. We have had to confront difficulties and limitations. But for many of us, because of those limitations, we've grown in unexpected ways. So the good news is now we're moving out into a much more expansive cycle of expansion, out of that time of trial, really, and hard work that brought us face to face with, what Capricorn does is it brings us down to the bones of things. So we looked at the bare bones of our lives, and we've begun to rebuild. And now here comes this beautiful cardinal sign of Aries, the spark of life, the beginning of everything. And that's the flavor of our new 2-year cycle of expansion. So it's a lot. It's beginning to put ourselves first again in the best of ways, prioritizing our own psychological well-being and our own psychological needs, thinking about all of the ways that we haven't been able to take action over the last couple of years. And how are we going to do that? We're going to want to do it all at once. So one of the challenges of this new cycle is going to be putting things in order, always a challenge for the cardinal signs, right? Because cardinal wants everything to happen at once. So it's going to be this balance of letting Mars push us to take action, but not so letting Jupiter temper that so that we're not just trying to do everything at once. It's a really different mood, and I'm so curious about how it's going to feel for people, because that limitation, that intensity of the limitation that we've been under with these two planets for the last couple of years is just done. On to the next.
Wow. I mean, so does that apply to all the different areas of life that have felt limited? I mean, because that it colors a lot of different areas. I mean, obviously travel, financial limitations, social limitations, and boundaries that were, made, and all kinds of things.
So we still have Saturn and Pluto that are kind of holding us back, right?
Yes.
But the dances that happen between the personal planets, Mars being a personal planet, and the social planets, that's Jupiter and Saturn, really do bring us back and forth across that line. So a lot of this is really about our personal cycles of growth and expansion. But because it's that personal planet talking to Jupiter, the social planet, we definitely will see it. I think that as far as the geopolitical stuff, we're still, those are waters that I'm not going to wade into right now. But there's still a lot of Capricorn at work because we still are Pluto and Capricorn, and there's still a lot of work for us to do just as a human family. And we're still going to be feeling those Capricornian limitations for a few years with that. But this is the beginning for us of starting to feel what a new sense of inner expansion can feel like after the lessons of the last couple of years. So I would say, in answer to your question, it's more personal, but we will see it. We will definitely see it in, I would say, like news and popular culture, those other places where we expect to see that social aspect of Jupiter show up. So it's that interesting bridge between the personal and the social. Well, still with the big picture outer planet stuff, we're definitely still working with some structural limitation.
Yes. Okay. So basically on the collective scale, we're still working through a lot of the themes we've been working through for the last few years. That's not going away like magically overnight. But personally, we are starting to feel this new sense of freedom and expansion and less of that sort of confinement that maybe people have felt. And even confinement in what you're allowed to vision, allowing yourself to vision for your life, which I know for a couple of years, it was like, God, it's hard to even see the future because there's so much turmoil. So it's hard to even put myself out like 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, because there's so much unrest.
Yeah.
But maybe we're having this opportunity to start to sense it a little bit more now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been so interesting watching everything that's happened over the last 6 months, because I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I had really high hopes for the Jupiter and Pisces transit. And of course, we know that one of the things that can happen with the mutables and with any kind of Neptune influence is that there's a big dream that doesn't come to much. And I do feel like that transit so much had its purpose, talking about the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces and the fact
Yeah.
that we've had the last 6 months of Jupiter in Pisces really expanding our dreams. Um, but it all didn't have it was more of the Neptunian fog and less of the dreaminess. So I
Mm.
think, again, it's been so clarifying as Jupiter has moved into Aries. And I think as Jupiter progresses in Aries, and now that Mars is kind of kicking him in the butt, we'll have a chance to really clarify some of the things that did happen for us during that Jupiter and Pisces time and with that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. It really is sometimes that Pisces stuff is on such a deep level. It's it's in our unconscious, it's in the collective unconscious, it's in our dream world and in the energetic realms. And we're doing hard work there. I'm sure all of you are experiencing this intensity of dreams lately, and even before eclipse season. So I think this is my hope is this is going to be the best of Aries, is that clarifying, purifying fire, that galvanizing influence that brings mental clarity and allows us to take action and to begin to see more clearly in the outer world exactly what that deep unconscious transformation of those Pisces transits was about for us. That it isn't just a wash or a loss. We didn't just spend a few months in the fog for nothing. That there was something happening, gestating, working in us on a really deep level. And, that's the job of Aries in Northern Hemisphere spring, to bring the plant up above the surface of the earth and let us see that, what Dylan Thomas called the force that through the green fuse drives the flower. We see the results and the fruit of everything that's been happening beneath the surface. That's Pisces Aries. So that is my hope, that this Jupiter Mars conjunction will be a turning point where we get galvanized. We know what we need to take action on, and there's a caution there too. But for those of us who have been doing that deep inner work and attending to self and soul during the Pisces and Capricorn times, we'll start to see how we can take action in the world on that. And we'll start to get some mental and even embodied clarity about what those lessons were for us.
I love it. I think it was you and me, Bronwyn, who talked about the bamboo. And on one of
Yeah.
our podcast episodes, we talked about, and I think bamboo might have been my example or your example, but there's that kind of bamboo that you have to water for 5 years
Yeah.
before it
Oh, I'm getting
shoots.
chills.
Yeah, before it shoots up above the soil.
Yeah.
And then when it does, it grows so fast. But
Yeah.
can you imagine the level of trust that you have to have that eventually all this that you're doing, tending to every single day, is eventually you're going to see the fruits of that?
Yes.
And to me, what I'm hearing in what you're saying is that there is this level of trust that even if we
Yes.
can't see the results of it, that the seed planting, that the visioning, that the dreaming, that all the things that we've been doing, that eventually, and maybe relatively soon, we're going to start to see what those things are. We're going to start to get clear. And then maybe just like the bamboo, the action that will happen will be fast because those foundations are so deep. Those roots are so deep in the ground.
Yeah. It's what a perfect and perfectly beautiful analogy for this. And I love, I actually wrote trust on my notes for this episode, really big letters at the top.
Mm.
It's absolutely key for the next 2 years. How are we going to grow into this cycle and how are we going to take action? Is that trust in the growth that has already happened. And that's so beautifully articulated by that story of the bamboo that we wait for. And I'm a practicing Tibetan Buddhist, and one of the things that an analogy that our teacher often draws is that analogy of the bamboo, and that it's like the limitation in that hollow stalk of bamboo, and you really can either go up or down. You don't have much choice. Like the growth is an upward growth, and that's analogous to the spiritual path. We just keep forcefully moving upward with that, and sometimes it's really challenging. And this again brings in that idea of flexibility within that limitation. We've had that constrictive limitation for the last couple of years. And now here we're going to see the fruits of that. Yeah, I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah, I have another example. Recently, we got a puppy, a black lab, and the best way to describe her as a puppy was like Marley from the movie. She was just wow. I mean, a lot where I was looking at it going, oh my God, how am I going to like manage my life and this dog? Like, this is,
oh my God. It's like Aries energy embodied, right?
Oh my God, completely. And I loved her. And it was like, this is really hard. Like, did we make a huge mistake? You know what I'm saying? And then there was a series of events that happened. We went away. She went to a little puppy retreat, I like to call it. Anyways, we came back and it was like a light switch went off, and now she's like this angel dog. And the thing that's amazing about it is like all the work we were doing, we were working really hard to train her. We were, waking up in the night and taking her out and doing all this. We were really diligently doing everything we felt was right to train her. But like, you couldn't see the fruits of it. It was like, God, is any of this working? But then it was like, all of a sudden we come back from this trip. It was like, who is this dog? Like, did they swap our dog out with another dog? But it sounds like that's kind of happening. There's all these things we're doing where it seems like maybe nothing's happening. Maybe nothing's working. Maybe we have to scrap the whole plan altogether, but trusting that there is that moment where you're like, oh my God, yes, finally it's coming together.
Yeah. It really requires, like, as Aries does, it requires profound self-trust, like really radical self-trust. And that's why this preparatory moment is really, I was going to say of the essence, it is. This preparatory moment is so important because we are going to find ourselves really wanting to go. And if we've taken that time to pack our bags carefully and to leave out what we don't want to take with us, it's going to be so much clearer what to do, because here we are off on this 2-year path. And taking a little bit of time to get clear now, not that we know everything now, we're going to evolve over the next 2 years, but just getting clear where we are in this moment is going to save us from the one thing that I want to caution about with this Jupiter in Aries and Mars coming along, is the potential of dispersal of energy. So we want to carry a little bit of that tension and that containment with us, just to keep that dynamic tension going, right? We need the tension for the dynamism. Otherwise, it's a dispersal, and that can even be explosive. And let me be really clear that I'm speaking on a psychological level when I use these words. I never want to instill fear. Speaking mythically and psychologically, there's this rapid dispersal of energies. So let's be ready for it, so that we're not doing the, what is it? Ready, fire, aim, but we're doing ready, aim, fire.
Yeah, Bronwyn, I'd love to ask you what you mean by that, or give an example. So what would dispersed energy look like, and what are you cautioning us against, and with maybe an example?
So if we think of that naturally expansive energy of Jupiter, it's really like just the chemical nature of an explosion, right? It takes something to ignite, and something that has been contained goes flying off in every direction. And our minds are going to feel a little bit like that. And I'm not saying that's always a bad thing. It's part of the creative process. It's sometimes the mess that you have to make before you put things back together. Sometimes things just do fly apart like that. It's okay, but we want it to be kind of a contained explosion, like they do when they destroy buildings. It's like that. Like, it's okay. Explosive energy can be positive. It can help to clear the ground. But we want to do it in a very mindful way. We want to do it mindfully. So really what I want to offer is that this is potent. Aries is a potent initiatory fire sign. Mars is so happy at home in Aries and wants to like light the fuses on stuff for us. And Jupiter is all about, big expansiveness. So this is beautiful. It means like a idea can take off like wildfire. It means We can move rapidly towards what we want to create, but it also means just even on a physical level I always relate Mars to our nervous system and our fight and flight response. So even just taking care of ourselves physically, carrying over from Taurus season and using Venus in Taurus, this is where she can be a real ally, to make sure that our bodies are grounded and calm so that we can contain that vigorous mental energy that's happening with the Mercury retrograde and when he gets back into Gemini, and the really explosive dynamic energy of Mars and Aries. And here comes Venus coming into Taurus saying, but let's remember that our body is our primary vehicle, and we want to stay grounded in the body, and we want to move these energies mindfully through our body before we really make a decision about how to use them.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So taking care of ourselves physically, staying grounded in the body, our ideas could be moving forward. How does that like combine with a lot of the retrograde energy?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that even
push-pull?
before. Yeah, it really does feel like push-pull. And this is where we really like do your Mercury remediation. And by that, I mean, even just talk to Mercury. Mercury is so present for us as an archetype within our minds. Mercury, the magical messenger. And in many ways, he's at his best when he's retrograde, because his trickster energy is really alive, and the synchronicities that we find in our lives are so vivid during this time. It's, in many ways, I feel like it's one of his favorite places to be, is in retrograde. And not to say that we don't take common sense precautions and not sign contracts and not buy electronics, and not to say that we won't experience moments of frustration and delay, because that's real too. But to always remember that when Mercury is erasing meetings from our calendar or delaying our travel, he's reminding us to look at the magic, to take a kind of backwards, sideways look at how we're moving. So I think, again, it's a little bit of a nice edge, to use a nice Mars analogy, where there can be confusion, but grounding into the Taurus energy that we still have left now, grounding into our own bodies, trusting through and finding the clarity, I think, on a level that's a little bit deeper than the mental level, because I think we will be seeing a lot of mental confusion, delays, and there may even be I'm thinking it's a good time to take a media fast, because things might be coming at us really quickly, different information about this and that. And it's not a week to be following that ticker tape. Just turn it off, come back to it maybe this time next week once we get past the new moon, and seek that mental calm. Mercury will keep prodding you and keep your mind really busy, but he has moved back into Taurus. So taking advantage of magical Mercury to bring us back into the body, listen to the wisdom of the body, and know that this will be a time when our anxiety might be a little bit heightened, when we feel like we have to do everything at once, and we don't. And that's, again, where Venus and Taurus can help us, because Taurus is all about doing things methodically and slowly. And Aries is all about, let's get it done now, let's do it. So we are going to be feeling, like you said, that push-pull. And if we can really lean into the wisdom of Venus and Taurus and remember to take it slow and only act on the things that we value the most. That's why we're taking this week to assess what those are. So we have our little cheat sheet as we get to next week, what is it that I really want? Because it might get confusing.
Oh gosh, this is so good, Bronwyn. And I've had moments in this last few days of whoa, I'm not even in my body right now.
Yeah.
I can feel that I am actually not in my body. Yeah. And I love what you're saying. So essentially, as we're getting clear on what are our essential values, then we can use that short list to prioritize the actions that we do take. And then we can trust that the outcome of those actions will be in alignment with who we are and what we're trying to build.
Yes.
So it's it's almost like a 3-step process that you've outlined for us.
Yes.
That enables the trust to come from a place of it's not just a hopeful thinking. It's
Right.
actually trusting in the process itself, that when we are actually in alignment with our values, that the outcome will also be in alignment with our values. So
Yes.
really, really helpful. What
Good.
other astrology do we need to be paying attention to this week?
Yeah, there's one more thing that I want to highlight, which is the conjunction of the moon and Venus. And that happens again in late Aries. It's really interesting how the moon is actually conjunct Mars right before Mars changes signs, and then the moon is conjunct Venus right before she changes signs. So we're really going to be feeling those changes in our bodies, coming down to the sort of the micro astrology of this week. But that moon Venus conjunction is important because it's part of a series of balsamic moon morning star Venus conjunctions that happens in the months following any Venus retrograde. And it's part of that myth cycle of Venus, where she spends her time in the underworld during her retrograde, which, if we remember, was back in December. She was retrograde in Capricorn. She goes retrograde every 2 years in a different sign. So we were doing that deep work in those Capricorns, and those poor worn out Capricorn placements in our charts had that last final integrative push during the Venus retrograde in December and January. And we're getting a little echo of that this week as that moon, balsamic moon, again, that moon reminding us to bring things down to the essence, meeting up with beautiful morning star Venus, who has started her descent in the morning sky, but it's still up there. And I know some of you have been getting up at dawn to watch some of these beautiful placements. It's been consistently cloudy here on the west coast of Canada. But this week is a cool time to do that too, because you'll be able to see that balsamic moon with Venus in the sky. And this is on Thursday, Thursday night, May 26th. And this will be a little reminder, an emotional reminder of what we went through in the winter with our Venus and Capricorn journey. And if that does come up, and if it's difficult, just remember it's just a shadow, it's just an echo, and it's coming up now with a purpose. And again, it's to add to that list, to add to your cheat sheet for going forward, just to give you a little review of how you refined your values over the winter. And yeah, so I'm just encouraging, it's always beautiful to witness those conjunctions when they happen. They're really sacred moments that were part of that myth cycle and visualized by the ancients as the moment when the goddess is at the gates ascending from the underworld, when she meets with the moon. So especially for those of you that are Venus ruled, the Tauruses and Libras, these are really potent moments. So I would take that time to be with Venus as a reminder to sink down into our most important values and into our compassion and into our ability to harmonize and bring things together, even during a time when things feel like we do need to sometimes separate them from things, and things might be really flying fast. That balsamic moon Venus conjunction on the 26th is a beautiful soul reminder of how far we've come in our journey, because she's high in the sky, almost at the final gates. How far we've come in our journey, what we truly value. And because she's still in Aries, and just about to go home to Taurus, it's thinking about, as we're coming into Aries time, how do we want to compassionately fight for ourselves and for our values? So even if you can't get up early and see that conjunction, maybe set an intention to dream that night with Venus and the moon, and dream about how you can be a compassionate warrior for yourself and for what you value the most, and have that be part of what you bring into the Mars Jupiter in Aries cycle. So that was one other thing that I wanted to highlight. There's actually a lot of astrology this week, but I think that we've talked about the things that are most, again, I want to say that word, of essence, the things that people really need to enter into this next 2 years strong and aligned.
Bronwyn, when you're talking about that moon Venus conjunction, and you're talking about her emerging from the underworld and taking her seat like high in the sky on her throne, right?
Yeah.
The other word that keeps coming to me, you said, how do we want to compassionately fight for our values?
Yeah.
Would you also use the word humble? Like, how do we want to humbly fight for our values. Because one of the things I think about with that Venus myth is that when she's stripped of all of her like armor, all of her jewels and her robes and all the things that probably made her feel beautiful, and then she goes into the underworld and she's naked and having to fight, right, and having to like go through this massive transformation. When she comes up and she's transformed, there to me seems like there would be a humility in her stance. She is super bright and shiny, but it's less of that sort of immature, like, look at me, how beautiful I am, and much more of a like embodied, again, humble, I'm going to use the word again, beauty that is still even, and maybe even more radiant, because it's coming from such a deep place within.
Oh, so Amanda, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I felt I needed to say it because it just, the word humble just kept coming. But so we're compassionately and we're also humbly standing behind what it is that we value and feel passionate about. Right.
It's so interesting because Aries isn't a word that we instantly associate with humble.
No.
But I think what you've just described, and I also think that this is such a poignant moment in her myth cycle, this idea of her coming back up through the gates and looking, I always imagine her like looking at the regalia that she abandoned and was stripped away from her and thinking about putting it back on. And what does that feel like after you've literally been through hell and fought for your life and faced death and faced your shadow, and coming back and being confronted by these, the staff, the jewelry, the robes that you in your vital innocence were wearing as you entered. And it is humility that with which she's readorning herself, but it's all going to look so different.
Oh, completely.
And it brings to mind like the warrior who has been in many battles and who still has to have that ego strength to push ahead and fight. But there's a humility and a sort of chastened wisdom that comes with that when you've really faced life and death. And you aren't just going to grab up that sword. You're really going to take it on and understand. So I think she understands the power then of those symbols of power that she readorns herself with. That's just beautiful to highlight that part of the story, because it's so easy to just think, oh, morning star Venus in Aries, she's the warrior, she's bright. There's so much underneath that. She's also battle weary, and wise and chastened and humility. Aries humility, it's very, very interesting. The soldier who has seen so much. If you've ever known somebody in your life who's come back from literal wars, there's even things that are unspoken, right? Because some things are so difficult to witness. And there's a particular kind of wisdom that comes with that makes me think of the Mars ruled signs, right? It's Scorpio, Aries wisdom.
Yes. Oof. I actually met a warrior on a plane one time, a man who flew some of the, anyways, I don't remember exact details, but he was a very seasoned, military person. And I had a lot of questions for him. I was very curious, and he was very kind in his willingness to share with me. And there were things that he said, you know what? I don't even want to tell you about that.
Yeah.
I love that you don't know. That makes me happy that I don't have to tell you, and I think everyone at this point, after the last few years, can relate with feeling a little battle weary and a little beat up and a little, maybe a lot, maybe not just a little, but, as you're taking up whatever it is you feel passionate about, there is a different stance. It's not like that bulldozing kind of like, I need you to see the things the way I see them. And I need you to do things the way I want you to. It's like, there is a maturity in like, hey, everybody's on their path. Everybody's in different places with how they're living their lives. And that's okay. And, we're not all here to save everybody else in whatever way we felt that might've been. And so it just seems like a lot of potent reflection. And if you're listening to this and you're like, what are they even talking about? like in with this like Venus myth and the taking off of the robes and the naked in the underworld and all that. Look up the Inanna myths. It's Inanna.
Yeah.
And the Inanna myths are essentially Venus. It's mythology that personifies Venus's movement in the sky. Meaning there's a goddess Inanna that goes through the actual movement that Venus does in the sky, which is like she starts in the sky, she goes under where we can't see her for a while, and that's when she's in the underworld, and then she emerges back from the underworld and takes her throne again, her seat. And so it's actually a physical movement you can observe in the sky, which is amazing to do. And and then there's mythology around it, which is very ancient mythology. Okay. Bronwyn, you have given us so much. Is there anything, before I do my little summary, is there anything else you'd want to add to this?
I think, as a Gemini ascendant, I could always go into more detail, but I think we can leave it there. I think it's, I'd be happy to talk to you about whatever.
I love that.
Whatever stood out for you.
Yeah. And as I go through the summary, if there's anything you want to add to, but what you're doing is demonstrating for us what it looks like to distill to the essence. You've just distilled the essence of the week so that we have the most important aspects. We can carry those with us. They're going to fit in our bag and we can bring them with us throughout this week. So thank you for that. You're demonstrating that. Okay. Great. So this is a watershed moment where two different tides are merging together. We have the cycles that we're ending, blending with the cycles that we're beginning. Yeah. And so there's this movement of like, okay, what is it that we're taking as we go into this new cycle, which is essentially a 2-year cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I can give you the end date. The next Mars-Jupiter conjunction will be on August 14th, 2024.
Wow. Yeah. And 2024 stands out as a year in my mind because I know a lot of astrologers who have said this time period that we're in collectively, this like real feeling of breakdown and chaos and all that it'll go till about 2024. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly when Pluto will ingress Aquarius, but
Pluto ingresses Aquarius, but then goes back into Capricorn.
Yeah. And then, okay. That's going to be really interesting. Right. It's going to be like a macrocosm of what we're experiencing this week, just that the watershed and combining of energies. I do. 2025 is the final ingress.
Yes. Right. Okay. So we're in this long extended period that this is an opportunity right now to be holding on to what's essential. So this essential wisdom, it's full of potential. This week is full of potential. So being very mindful about how you're directing your energy. I love the suggestion of a media fast. I'm in. Yeah. Are you all in? And when I think of media fast too, I used to think that would only mean a fast from like mainstream media. But that can also mean a fast from any kind of media that you are kind of constantly tuning into and getting your grounding about what's going on in the world. Yeah. So I think that any sort of media fast this week, like we can do it together, you guys. I know.
Can I add to that as well? It's kind of fasting from the uppermost level of your own mind, which is like that ticker on the TV that's just like always going, and sinking down into that more magical Mercury mind, which is really good medicine for Mercury retrograde anyway. So kind of count that as part of what's the rapid cycling that you want to ground down.
Very good.
Just take a little break from.
I can feel your 4 planets in Taurus when you say things like that. It's like it's like just ground down into your body, be in your body. It's like, okay, Bronwyn, we can do that. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to be having rich inner conversations this week. Yeah. So give yourself the space to do that. And what do you want to bring forward? And what do you want to leave behind, especially around the areas of your values and your emotions? And then this question of how do you want to take action? How do you want to take action? Really allowing yourself some space to think about those things. Yeah. And also, what are your essential beliefs? So if you distill down to maybe not the surfacey kind of things that people might be able to see, but what are the essential beliefs behind those things that people might see, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have this last week of the Mars Jupiter cycle, meaning we're ending a Mars Jupiter cycle and we're beginning
Yeah.
a new Mars Jupiter cycle. And this is a lot of action, expansion. How do we want to expand? You're also inviting us to put ourselves first and prioritize our own needs. This is an opportunity to put things in order and prioritize them. So again, it's like looking at all the different things you could be doing. And there could be this sense of like, oh my gosh, I can do it all. But really taking the time to prioritize what actually needs to get done first, second, and third, or what's phase one, and then what can be phase two, and what can be phase three, and not trying to do everything all at the same time.
Yeah.
You said this energy this week is we're going to start to be tuning into a different mood. And there's going to be a new sense of inner expansion. You said, along with that, there is a purifying fire. We're going to be able to see more clearly in the outer world, something that there's been something happening on deeper levels, but we're going to start to see the fruits of that or the results of that, like the bamboo coming up out of the soil.
Oh, love that.
This is a turning point. So see how we can take action, take time to get clear now. Don't disperse the energy too much. The ideas could be moving at rapid fire. You reminded us to take care of ourselves physically. So maybe when you're looking at your week, you're planning your week, have you made space for the things that make you feel grounded, whatever those are for you? Maybe that's taking walks in nature. Maybe that's meditation. Maybe that's yoga. Maybe that's dance. Maybe that's taking a bath, whatever it is, making sure that you're making space for it and you're prioritizing it. If you're like me, it's got to be on the calendar or it's not happening.
Put it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar.
Important right now.
Yes. Okay. Because what you're saying is, while there could be some mind movement and a lot of information potentially coming in, that keeping your body calm and your nervous system calm is really important.
Yeah. It's really that Aries Taurus conversation where Aries can be like the heightened nervous system and a lot of cortisol flowing, and you can use that and channel that really effectively and turn fear into excitement if you're grounding it back into that settled Taurian body that is just sensually aware. So using that, letting your nervous system settle into that sensual body, and then it can be fun. Then we can get to some of the good Taurus Aries stuff. So
love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm reminded there was one more quick kind of esoteric framing that I wanted to give this week, which is that we have 3 of our goddess asteroids in the early degrees of water signs: Hygeia, Ceres, and Vesta. So our healing capacity, our that deep warrior wisdom, Ceres holds that, and she also is familiar with the ways of the underworld. So she holds that for us. And Vesta, which is what we hold a flame for, how we carry our beliefs in the world. All 3 of those goddesses are in early degrees of the 3 water signs, so they're forming a grand trine in water. It kind of fades in and out over the course of this week. And when I looked at it visually in the chart, just the way the chart is laid out this week, that grand trine kind of fading in and out, it's like they're dancing around the main action that's happening in Taurus Aries, and just lending this nurturing, poignant, sacred energy the way that those goddesses can. And I think that that's on a more esoteric level, that's an energy that we can tap into, that dance of compassion that's happening in the sky, that's just kind of holding that trine and holding that bigger, compassionate, watery shape around all this fire and earth business that's happening here. So I really loved the vision of that dance of the goddesses kind of holding us, like the Matisse painting of the dance of life.
Yes.
Just picturing ourselves in the center of that as we go through this tumultuous, but ultimately, I think, clarifying energy of the next couple of weeks.
Thank you for bringing in the asteroid goddesses. It's always welcome. So yes, I can see that too, that painting that you just brought in. Okay, perfect. Do Mercury remediation, you said. Take a backwards and sideways look at how we're moving. Seek mental calm and look at the magic. I love that so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
look out for synchronicities.
Synchronicities. Okay. You said that our anxiety might be heightened. And again, the medicine you gave for that is getting into our bodies.
Yeah.
You said to again lean into the wisdom of Venus and Taurus, take action on what we really, really value. Then
Yeah.
the conjunction of Moon Venus is bringing in an emotional reminder of December, January, which
hmm
got to admit makes me my palms sweat a little bit. Like, oh
It's just be
no.
really fast little shadow
Okay.
crossing
Okay.
over
All right.
just for the day, and it'll be clarifying, really. It's
Clarifying.
okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a repetition, just a reminder or an echo.
And you said that it's going to help us understand the purpose too of some of
hmm
that time. What values did you refine during that time?
Yes.
You said to go outside in the morning. So go outside in the morning and actually see this Venus
Yeah.
and the moon together. And there is a different level of connection that you will get with your astrology and with your week and with the planets when you start to look at them.
Oh my gosh.
It changes
It's
everything. And
huge.
it's one of those things that's hard to describe because it's like, once you
Yeah.
experience it, you're going to go, oh yeah, I know what they're talking about. But if you can, if it's not, there's sometimes it's so disappointing because it's like, I wanted to, but I couldn't because it was cloudy or, whatever. But if you can go out and do it, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And especially Thursday, May 26th is
Yes.
when this.
And also on Sunday, because that Jupiter Mars conjunction that we've been talking about is also going to be visible. You might have to Google the astronomy sites to find out exactly when, but that's also in the pre-dawn sky and
Ooh,
on Sunday, Monday. Yeah.
ooh, exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
You said, let's see, be with Venus. And this is a reminder of how far you've come
hmm
and what you truly value. And how do you want to compassionately fight for your values?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bronwyn. This has been so much fun.
Oh,
I
it's really
always
been
love hanging
fun.
out with you. Yes. And thanks for being here, all of you. Thanks for being with us. We do have something cool. We have a new free report that is
Hmm.
a sun, moon, and rising report. So you probably hear a lot about the big three in astrology, and the sun, moon, and rising. If you don't know anything else about your chart, just knowing your sun, moon, and rising can be an amazing place to start. And even if you know what your sun, moon, and rising is, you still may love to get this report because it's always described a little bit differently, like how different astrologers interpret the energies. And it's always fun to see the different angles that you can interpret yourself by. Or you could get this free sun, moon, and rising report for someone in your life. You can go to astrologyhub.com/free report and pick that up today. And Bronwyn, again, thank you so much. You're on Instagram still, and
Oh,
people can
yeah.
find you
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Moon.wisdom on Instagram, and I'm there a lot. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for talking to your friends about the show. I love when we get testimonials that come in and say, my friend recommended that I listen to the weekly weather and I've been listening for months and I love it. Thank you. We love hearing your stories. We love connecting with you this way every week. And we're so grateful that you're part of this community at Astrology Hub. So thank you. And thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks again, Bronwyn.